Hey, so in this video I'm going to be walking you through the steps on how to clean the video heads on a Sony DSR-25 miniDV deck. As you can see, I have two of these and I've put a ton of hours on my first one. And if you go look up how to clean the heads on these, most people say take it into service, or they'll recommend using one of these miniDV cleaning cassettes. And I used to use these a lot, and it's kind of given me problems on my first deck. And what I didn't realize is with these cassettes, you're not supposed to use them too often, and what they actually do is they have sort of an abrasive part of them that cleans the head by sort of taking a layer off of it. So people recommend not to use these too much, and this deck kind of got to the point where I felt like it needed an actual cleaning, and I didn't want to take it into service. So I've done the cleaning on this deck, and I just got this one in today and already put a few tapes through it, and I wanted to tear this one down and show you the steps to clean the video heads by yourself. A couple things you're going to need before we start. Standard Phillips screwdriver, a smaller one. I also grab tiny Phillips. And I usually grab a pair of channel locks just in case some of the bolts haven't been taken off before. You'll need these to put a bunch of torque on the bolts and get them off. I grab a pair of pliers just because some of these bolts are tiny and they're kind of hard to get out. You're going to want to have your chamois swabs ready and some isopropyl alcohol. If you've watched my other video on cleaning the high 8 decks, I really like these. You should never use Q-tips on a video head because they can fall apart and cause issues later on and just make the head worse. So you can find these on Amazon, just chamois swab or electronics cleaner swab. And this is 99% isopropyl alcohol. I usually grab just a random tape to test with afterwards. This is a tape that somebody left in their camera that I bought on eBay. So I just use this to check things afterwards, just in case something bad happens and the tape gets eaten. As with any electronics repair, you're gonna wanna make sure this has been off for a little while. We're not doing anything that interfaces with capacitors, so there's not really too much of a concern of shock or anything, but I still like to leave it off for 20 minutes or half an hour or so. We're gonna start by taking the 4 bolts off the side, and that's going to remove the cover. I'll probably fast forward through some of this. Now we can pull the cover off, and it just pops up and off. So here's a good look at the inside of these decks. So basically what we have to do here is to gain access to the video head, which is buried under here, we want to take this entire piece off. And as far as I can tell, this whole mechanism here and all these gears over here and this entire lever system is just to sort of push the tape out after the tape has been ejected. So it seems a little over-engineered, but I've even considered not putting this piece back on, but that's okay, we can try it out anyway. What we're gonna have here is there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bolts on the side, and I'll try to get in here so you can see, but there's 1, 2 here, 3 right here, and then there's 2 over here, and then 1 right here, and that's the entire mount for the thing. Okay, so I'm going to start cracking these bolts off now. 2 of them you can use your standard Phillips, the larger one, and these ones are magnetic. I just set these aside. But if you don't have a magnetic screwdriver, you could use your pliers for that. And then the reason I got the channel locks is for these couple bolts. If they haven't been taken off before, they can require a bit of torque. So I put them in and then grab the locks like that, push down and give it its first test. those start coming out. Here's close-ups of those two bolts right here removed, and then this one right here. That'll be the same on the other side. All right, do the same for the other side. Okay, now before we try lifting this out, we're going to have to remove a couple more things first. If you look right here, there's a little plastic piece that covers all these gears. So we're going to want to take that off. Set that aside and go with the plastic piece. And then, at the very end of all these gears, there's a little motor underneath here. It's kind of hard to see, you can see it through here. And that's the motor that drives all those gears before the tape's ejected. So there's two bolts on that motor and you can get to them. And we just want to take those off, take them aside, and set that motor aside. And it'll fall down once it's out. Now that motor will just kind of fall down and you can leave it where it falls. I'll show you that too. So if you see right under here, the motor's just sitting in here, and we'll just feed that up later and reconnect it. So now we have 3 bolts on this side gone, 3 bolts on this side, the 2 bolts for the motor are out. And the last thing we want to do is we're going to disconnect this cable right here. It's sort of a standard connector, so you just need to pry it a little bit, and then we're going to unfeed these wires from all these little hooks too, and then move that out of the way. See that? So as you can see, I have this disconnected, and I'm just going to kind of unhook it from all these little places and then set it aside. It's easy if you do these one at a time also. Okay. For this one over here, you're gonna have to look in the side view, and there's one more hook for it. With that all done, you can sort of just move this out of the way. And I'll zoom in on this again. So I have this connector just out of the way for now and disconnected. And now the whole unit should pop up. this with one hand. Okay, so we can take this entire piece and we can set it aside. And now we have a bit clearer access to the video head, just enough to be able to get in there and clean it. Okay, so now your video head is right in here, under this piece. I also try to clean the 4 rollers the tape goes up against. So there's a roller here, and you'll notice they spin. So there's a roller here, there's a roller here. They all look the same. There's one here, and then there's the 4th one tucked back here. So go ahead and grab your swab and some isopropyl alcohol. I normally just give a couple drops on this. So maybe 2 on this side. Now, Sony didn't make this part easy, but to get in here, you have to, if you look from above, it's kind of hard with the light here, there's a single spot right here where you can fit the swab down in and press it up against the video head. And it'll be at an angle just about that. Now it's important that you don't move this against the video head. You set it against the head, and then we'll reach a finger in and we'll spin the head against the swab to clean it. So I'm gonna go in this direction. It'll push up against the video head. And then from in here, I'll use my thumb very lightly at the top and spin the head. And I'll do this for maybe 4 rotations. Then remove the swab. And actually you can see a little bit of dirt on this thing. Then I'll do the same. I'll put a couple drops on the other side. Put it in this little opening between these black plastic pieces. Push the swab up against the head. And I'll do it one more time, spinning the head up against the swab. And I'll put a little bit of pressure on it. And then remove it. What I usually do is I'll just chop the end of the swab off that I used, and then I'll use this other side for those rollers that are in here. The rollers are kind of tough. What I do is on these ones at least, I'll just sort of use the swab, go up and down on it a little bit, and then sort of turn it at the same time. The same for all 4 of them. And that's it. We'll go ahead and reassemble this, and then we'll test it out with the tape. Okay, grab this piece back and gently set it in. I'm going to sort of do the opposite here, and I'm going to put these larger bolts in first to keep the mount in place. feed the side cables through all their little holding tabs. And plug that connector back in. I'm going to go ahead and put the motor back in place. And you might have to use needle nose to get this. I might be able to do it with just a screwdriver. Okay, I'll put this plastic piece back in place. And then the 4 tiny screws for the main mount. All right, now that's everything back together. What I like to do is I like to give it about 10 minutes just to air dry, and then we'll run a tape through it. All right, it's been about 10 minutes, so I'm gonna plug this thing in, leave the top cover off just so we can see the tape operation. And power's on. Like I said, use a tape that you don't really care about. This one just came in a random camera that I bought off eBay. Tape load seems to work. All this stuff is working correctly. Let's see if we get some output. Yep, looks good. So what I like to do is just let this tape run for maybe 10 minutes, make sure everything's working okay, and then we'll put the top cover back on, and then we're done.